You're listening to episode 133, update episode with Isabelle Rizo. Welcome to the Grass Gets Greener podcast, the show for survivors by survivors. I'm your host, Melissa Wilson, a bullying survivor and anti-bullying advocate. And each week you'll hear from a survivor who has overcome a traumatic experience to go on to not only survive, but thrive, so that you can too, starting now. Hey there, welcome, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I'm so grateful to have you here. And today I have an update episode for you. We're going to be rejoined by Isabelle Rizo, who was first on almost 2 years ago. So we're just going to catch up with her and hear about what she's been up to over the past 2 years. And if you haven't checked out that first episode yet, and you want to, you can find that at thegrassgetsgreener.com/Isabelle Rizo. Before we get into this one, I do just want to mention that this episode is sponsored by Navni. Navni is the top-ranked anonymous writing website in the world. Navni provides free wellness resources and low-cost online therapy services to help people cope with various levels of emotional distress. Write anonymously, feel better at novni.com. So if you haven't listened to Isabelle's first episode yet, Isabelle joined me last time to share her story of how she has been able to consciously create her life and find her identity after growing up feeling different and struggling to fit in. Isabelle was born into the world without a cultural or legal identity because her parents were political refugees. She was born in Germany, but her family couldn't stay there, so they ended up moving to the US when Isabelle was very young. Isabelle struggled to fit in and always felt different, especially in school. She even ended up having a nervous breakdown when she was a freshman in high school and suffered from anxiety and depression as a result of the pressure to fit in. Isabelle started finding and attracting friends who were also different and unique, and who liked her for who she was. She also created a community for people she connected with online to meet in person. The most important thing Isabelle did for her healing was to consciously create a life for herself, which allowed her to find her identity. So now let me share a little bit about what we'll be talking about in this episode. We'll get an update on the work that Isabelle's been doing, including a podcast and a retreat that she has coming up. She's going to talk about how she's been using social media and digital platforms as a form of mindfulness practice. We'll get into some of the travel that she's done and her future plans and what she's working on next, and the importance of knowing when to focus on self-care. So I hope you're excited to get to hear back from Isabelle. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into this one, and I'll go bring Isabelle on. Isabelle, welcome back to the podcast, and thank you for joining me here today to continue sharing your journey with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back on. So you and I chatted not too long ago and got to catch up, and I wanted to have you back on the show to catch us all up on things with you since you were first on almost 2 years ago now. And I know you have some... Yeah, crazy, right? And I know you have some exciting things going on, and I think the listeners will be happy to hear from you. So, Isabelle, start us out by filling us in on what it is you do today.
Yeah, so right now I'm still doing consulting and coaching and still making artwork as usual. But I think there's been more layers since we last spoke, where I have the Crevice Studios podcast. I bring in some flower essences to my coaching practice, consulting practice, so flower essence practitioner, and then hosting retreats and doing art shows, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said you have a podcast?
Yes, I do. It's called the
I wasn't
Crevice
aware of that.
Studios podcast. Yeah, the Crevice Studios podcast.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Oh, it's great. Every month I make a new podcast based on the full moon and what the full moon theme is, and kind of go from there. So, for example, this month's Capricorn, and Capricorn is all earth energy. Earth energy is all about details and taking things slow and steady so that details are being taken care of, and kind of philosophizing and exploring that theme and how that shows up for ourselves this month.
Cool. How long have you been doing that for?
That's been happening since the beginning of this year, actually, so 2018.
Nice. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know you're still doing things with the Singularity Storyteller.
Yep, so still going through storytelling processes, and right now going through a class where we're kind of integrating more of these elements with your story, and a little bit of self-care in honoring what your self-expression is in your story.
Nice. Yeah, and you have is it a retreat that's coming up? You're going to Romania?
Yeah, so originally my roots are in Romania, and so it's very exciting that I get to take some of my students that are in my storytelling classes out to Romania for a little under a week and walk them through the different monasteries and have a tea ceremony and live out in the village for a little while and collect different elements in Romania that'll help us kind of integrate more of our story. So it'll be photography, it'll be art, it'll be intuitive poetry. And then at the end, when they come back to wherever they're coming from, wherever they're flying out from, them creating their own shows, them creating their own communities wherever they're at, so that more self-expression can be an important tool in their own leadership in their own communities.
Well, that sounds exciting. Have you
Yeah.
have you done something like this before, or is this kind of the first time you're doing one of these events?
I've done international workshops before, but I've not done an actual retreat. So I feel like this is going to be like a longer-term workshop with lots of little pieces coming together.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, tell us like what else has been new since we had you on 2 years ago.
I still can't believe it's been 2 years. Oh, what else has happened? So I'm now the herbalist at an apothecary in Chicago. So that's really nice because I get to integrate my herbalist practice back into my storytelling practice. And then I got my flower essence practitioner certification. So going deeper into people's emotions and using flower essences as tools for mindfulness. And then what else? Oh, I did an international art show in Prague, which was amazing. And Prague was such a mystical and magical city that I highly recommend people go. It's such a very rich history of storytelling. So, of course, I went to the bookstores there and bought a couple of books. And then published my book after the show in Prague with my collection of essays on singularity storytelling and the art of noticing in the digital age, and how we really can use social media and then digital platforms as a form of mindfulness practice instead of getting absorbed into social media, and using that as a canvas really for your self-expression.
Nice. Yeah, tell us more about like the work you've been doing with mindfulness practices.
Yeah, so a lot of people, I guess I'm trying to go against the wave where everyone's saying social media is bad and technology is bad, when I found that for my own story and for everything that I wanted to put my mind to make manifest in my life was I used digital technology and social media as a form of public accountability, saying, this is what I am doing, that I'm setting out that I want to do, and here are daily posts of me going towards that goal. And here are the books that I am reading, and here are the people that I'm talking to. And that was really documenting my story of becoming and having people see, oh, well, here's all the parts of what Isabelle's doing, what is she up to? And then a few years later saying, oh, look, she's doing the thing that she said she was going to do. So it's this repeating pattern, over time that people can notice. I'm not just talking like, oh, I dream of doing this or I dream of doing that, but it's actually going out and doing it and documenting my process. And then the storytelling part is really, if people Google my name, they can find all of the projects that I put out and all of the posts that I made, or the blog posts I've written, or the interviews I've done that are documenting me in the thick of it, in the middle of, like right now, right before the retreat, or another podcast I did a while ago, how do you feel right before the international exhibition? Another one was, oh, you're organizing a national art show. How do you feel about this? And what are the learning experiences of this? So people can see my transparent story of what it takes to go behind the scenes. Because a lot of, I think, storytellers only share the highs, where I'm like, nope, here's all of it, and here are all the steps that it's going to take to make this happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's something about, putting it out there, about what you're working on and what your goals are. It definitely helps to keep you accountable to them, because you don't want to, like, you've declared that this is what you're going to do, and you want to, like, stay in integrity and follow through
Yeah.
on that, and show people that, you keep to your word. Plus, I think it also, like, it lets people in to what you're doing, and it helps, I think, to kind of build that relationship with them a little bit more, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then other people, I remember getting some tweets a few years ago when I was still doing my digital nomad travel blogger thing. And I received some tweets that said, after reading your blog for the last, 3 months, 4 months, don't remember exactly, like, I just put some money aside and I quit my job and I'm embarking on becoming a digital nomad. And here are the books that I'm reading and here's what I'm doing. And I was like, wow, that was from my art, my words, my content, and me documenting my story. And that is such a, like, if that doesn't mean that you're an influencer, then what is really? And the other thing too is I like to share the complexity of everything. A lot of people say, oh, well, overnight success or just this. I'm like, no, 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 no. Here is all of the stuff that needs to happen, the mindset work, the admin work, the non-exciting, not sexy stuff that needs to happen to make the sexy stuff happen, and I guess I'm trying to, by sharing my story, is even the admin stuff and the not so fun stuff, really sharing, like, that is still pretty amazing, and shifting the perspective around that, making it interesting for people.
Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah, and that's so great when, what you're sharing inspires someone to go and take action for themselves.
It's the best feeling.
Yeah, that's great. How long have you been kind of, putting yourself out there that way?
Since 2008. Oh my God, it's been 10
2008,
years.
wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while. It was first just collecting people's stories
Mm-hmm.
around their, how did they become the people that they are? And that's when I would go deep with people and ask them questions that you wouldn't get in the books or you wouldn't get in the promotional interviews. And, trying to find those themes. And then I just followed my curiosity of what I wanted to learn and shared that with people on social media.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you
Yeah.
doing it mainly through Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram. I think
Okay.
Instagram has been more powerful the last 3 years that I've been using it. And then after I still will of course use my website, and now that I'm doing the podcast through what's this feature? I forgot the platform that I use, but it'll take it out to iTunes, which is really nice for me, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about that. And then I still have my YouTube videos back from 2008 on there, which I looked back just a few weeks ago, and I was like, wow, look at you doing the thing back in 2008. But I was doing the thing, which I'm very proud of, a little past
Yeah.
self me for putting myself out there and being accountable, and actually even sharing some of the fears of my project at the time. Was doing a documentary on education in China. And so sharing that, like the doubt, I watched that video that I did and I was like, wow, it's the same thing again and again, no matter what I do. So it was great reinforcement to see what I'm doing is on the right path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's great. I mean, when you're doing it online, I mean, it's all being recorded and saved, and so, like, you get to go back and see it, and maybe sometimes,
Yes.
like, maybe that might, like, make, I don't know, like, I'm not saying this for you, but, like, for me it might make me cringe when I go look back at things I did at the beginning.
Well,
But
that's
it's good
usually what
to
my
have it there.
response was. Like at the beginning, I thought that I was going to cringe because I've had that response in the past at the video that I watched. But now I don't know if it's all the inner work that I'm doing or just the shift that is happening inside. is that I looked back more in appreciation for myself. Maybe it's cultivating more self-love or self-compassion.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, and then you said you went to been to Prague, and then you're going to Romania. Have you been traveling anywhere else?
I've been pretty much staying in Chicago to just, still stay rooted a little bit and explore, just the city that I'm in, because I don't really do that as much. It's so funny. Like, I'm going to go explore and be a tourist in other cities, but I haven't been in others. I mean, last year I was in Paris, and that was great. And then before that, I've been to Brussels um, and New York, so that's good too. But I've been more intentional with my travel as I did the digital nomad thing, and now I'm just being intentional with where I go, and I'm feeling really drawn to creating more of a long-term relationship with doing things in Romania to help the economy there as well, and maybe create some strategic business partnerships with, the folk artists there, and just kind of sustaining the culture and the traditions that are there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of a
Yeah.
perfect segue into the next section I want to get into, which is just kind of any future plans you have that you want to share with us, or things you're going to be working on next.
Yeah. Well, right now, actually, this morning I got the rough design from my designer about a financial literacy workbook for soft-spoken leaders and creatives that want to share their story. I just found that a recurring theme with a lot of the clients that I work with, they have such big hearts, and then they have big empty wallets, and they want to help so many people. So I created a workbook that I give out to my Patreon supporters, that they can use different colors and art to create budgets every month. And I've been using this system for the last 2 years, and it's been really supportive for me in just taking stock, not only of my finances, but of my goals, of my feelings, of my emotional state as well, and just keeping me on track. And I find it's more of a creative process. So usually with the stuff that I create, maybe I just didn't Google it hard enough. It didn't exist, so I create it because I need it. And I was using scrap paper to keep track of everything. And I was like, you know what, I want to make a nice journal workbook for this, where I can actually keep track of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and I'm
that's
sure
coming up.
it can help others as well.
Exactly. And the Patreon supporters are super excited about it. And they're like, when's it coming out? And I've done the Reinvent Your Money Story class online several times. And now I want to give more of a tangible physical thing to my digital space, my digital classes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
So, Isabelle, how are you doing today? I mean, I know last time we talked, I know you were doing well, and it sounds like you're still doing well. Are there any things that, you still struggle with at all, in relation to, things you went through growing up?
Yeah. I mean, thank goodness I still go to my therapist, the same one from 2 years ago, every week. I still have a very supportive artist group that every week we connect in emotionally and check in on each other. So having those systems has been really good. I had a really tough season 2 years ago in November with a lot of stuff changing, relationships ending, and financial struggle and shifting things in business. So that was really an important time for me to go inward and extra self-care, extra therapy, noticing diet as well.
It's
and
important,
still,
isn't it, to
oh, yes.
to know when you need to focus on yourself a little bit more if you're going through something difficult.
Yeah, I think knowing your season of when it's time to go inward is very important. I think everything externally was forcing me to go inward because I didn't want to. I kept pushing, and of course it catches up with you after a while.
Mm-hmm.
So having, my tools ready, my mindset practices, my gratitude practice every day, a lot of intuitive movement, and dance to process things, that was actually really pivotal because a lot of my stuff is very mental. So getting out of the head and getting into the body, that has been very healing in my journey. It's just a matter of doing it, right? Doing it regularly.
Yeah.
But I'm in a much better place, like even way better than before 2 years ago, and still in recovery from working through trauma, and just very proud of myself that despite everything, and even with triggers, like even just today, there was a song that came on, and emotionally it just took me down for a spiral, and not making myself wrong for being emotional in that space, because a lot of my coping has been to suppress and go into professional mode or just keep pushing forward. So it's very funny that I'm celebrating that I can feel more, even though it's very uncomfortable, which is it's still very new for me, and there's still some resistance to it. But the difference of feeling more is so much better than the numbness, you know.
Yeah. And that's, it's so important to just have those tools and resources, things that can help you, and to be able to turn to them when you need them to help you get through it. And then, like you said, and the other part is actually using them. It can be easy to
regularly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So Isabelle, I'm going to ask you the final question that I have for you today before we wrap things up. And so this is the same final question that I asked you last time. So just, in case your answer may have changed, that is, given what you know now, if you could go back to when you were going through your tough times and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Sit with yourself. Like, don't run away from yourself and what you're feeling, but really sit with it, because there's some really good gold in there. Yeah.
Yeah. It can be a difficult thing to do, but
yes.
definitely worth it. Yes.
Yeah,
that's the harder
gold
option.
In that.
The easier option is to run away from it.
Yeah. And to be patient with self, and that there's a time, even if just throughout the day, there's a time for sitting and mourning and grieving and what I would call shadow emotion. It's not bad, and there's a time for momentum and pushing and going, and that could just be even throughout a day. And even if you're just doing a little bit that day, you did that thing, and let yourself feel the rest of what you need to feel that day, and it's okay.
Yeah. So Isabelle, what is something that we could do to help support you in what you have going on right now?
Yeah. Well, if anyone is interested in supporting more of the financial literacy for creatives and soft-spoken leaders, they could check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Isabelle Rizo BVP, and they can get their copy of the financial literacy workbook. And the other thing too is, if they want to check out some of my other work, there's lots of art available, lots of classes, and even just support on Patreon, so that if somebody that can't afford a financial literacy workbook or a class that's happening in Chicago or abroad, it may be able to serve somebody that will, their donation or their Patreon support, and listen into the podcast and engage in the conversation. I love hearing and seeing more people have deeper conversations like we just had here. So that's the best support you can give.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll have that linked up on the show notes page. And where can we find the podcast? And you said it's on iTunes, right? Is it on your website as well?
It's on iTunes, Stitcher. Yep, and it's on my website. And if you Google the Crevice Studios, it should be the first or second one that pops up.
Sounds good. Great. And,
Alrighty.
any other ways to connect with you or find out about everything you have going on?
Yeah, I've been playing with visual imagery and art on Instagram. So I'd love to see more other artists and other survivors on Instagram. You can go to instagram.com/Isabelle Rizo BBT. And there's some amazing people that I've connected with and clients as well that I've connected with that are just amazing kindred spirits. So I'd love to see some of their art on Instagram.
All right, great. Yeah, I'll be sure to have all that linked up so people can go and check out everything you have going on. So, Isabelle, I just want to thank you for coming back on here today and for, catching us up on what you've been up to over the past 2 years. And hopefully the listeners have enjoyed getting to catch up with you as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you again for your time and for all that you do.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the show today. This has been the Grass Gets Greener podcast, episode 133. Go to thegrassgetsgreener.com/Isabelle Rizo and the number 2 to find the links mentioned during this episode or to leave a comment. So hope you enjoyed getting caught up with Isabelle today and hearing about everything that she has going on. And if what she's doing resonates with you, then I definitely encourage you to go check out her work and help to support her in what she's doing. And come back for the next episode. It looks like we have a couple more update episodes coming up, which I'm excited about and hope you will be as well. So stay tuned for those. And also head over to the website to grab your free copy of the Top 10 Strategies Guide for Survivors. In it, you'll find the top 10 most common strategies my podcast guests have used for overcoming the effects of past trauma. It's a great place to get started if you're looking for some strategies that can help you in your healing, as they have helped my guests. And you can find that at thegrassgetsgreener.com/guide or also on the show notes page. So be sure to grab that if you haven't yet. And lastly, don't forget to head over to iTunes or Stitcher to leave the show a rating and review so that we can reach as many survivors as possible. And as always, have hope.